Hey Fabulous! So welcome back to Fails for Friday. In the last case for this week, we are going back to Malaysia. So we've covered Malaysia before with like the coffee murder. That case is like very well known. It was at one point, and so I'll leave a link to that down below because I've already covered it. But in this case, it also involves Indonesia and North Korea. And in fact, there's actually like this big conspiracy because this video, of course, as the title suggests, is an assassination of our victim. So, with that being said, definitely know your thoughts down below. Everything I have recorded is, of course, public information. I have the link down below, links down below, with most of the information, of course, coming from the first source because it's a whole hour long. Hopefully, this video is like maybe not even 30 minutes, but considering how much information I wrote down, we'll see. Anyway, so with that being said, let's go and get started. We start off with Siti. She apparently was born in a village in Indonesia on February 12th, 1992. Her father would go to the mosque and pray like 5 times a day, so it sounds like they are of the Muslim religion, but I didn't say for certain. But apparently he is a man that does pray, so that's good. And he was selling spices for income. And Siti, understandably, her parents wanted a better life for her, which as most good parents do. And then she wanted to be able to turn back and buy her parents a house. I guess it's like a thank you for raising her. So at least she was going to show she was grateful for the upbringing that she had. So when she was like 14, she moves to like the capital of Indonesia. And this is apparently under the promise that a family member told her that, hey, you can come to the capital for like this job. I guess she thought it was like a big like glamorous job to get away from like the village life, but instead it was a workshop, and obviously this was like 16-hour days, wasn't making a lot of money, but all the money that she was making, she was sending it back to her parents so they could live off it for like 2 whole years. She winds up meeting like the sweatshop owner's son, and they wind up dating, and they're married within like months, and then she gets like pregnant. So the same sweatshop that she's working at stops in like 2010. So she moves back with her birth family, like the family that she also was raised under. She moves back with them, and by this point, they went to Malaysia. And since that was the only income that she was bringing in, she decides to become a prostitute. So the husband, I guess, he didn't like this, and so he comes home with divorce papers. She goes back to Malaysia with the child that they had together, but then she eventually sends the child back with her husband because the husband's family, they came for money, so she wants her son to have a better life. So we don't know what became of the son, like what his name is, what he's doing now, if he's even still alive. I didn't get that information. So while in Malaysia, she decides she's going to do escort business, but she disguises it as massage online because, obviously, apparently escorting in Malaysia is like illegal. So then she would charge how much she made in a single month at the workshop. That's how much one session would be cost. So she's trying to get like her money's worth. She ain't trying to like be struggling like she was at the workshop. So obviously she's sending the money back to her parents because the parents, they're struggling. So when you make good money, you send money back to the parents so they can, make good with it. And obviously she would have to fly back from Indonesia to Indonesia from Malaysia at least once a month, because apparently if you're in Malaysia for more than 30 days and she ain't had no visa, and I guess she didn't want to pay for a visa, so she would just fly back to Indonesia just so she wouldn't have to pay for the visa. So then I guess she always had a dream of becoming an actress, because one day apparently she's in this taxi and the taxi driver told her, like, hey, I can get you an acting job. And apparently he claimed that he had talked to this guy named James, who was a director, and he was doing like YouTube pranks, which apparently back then at the time, for perspective, this was like very popular, was bringing a lot of views. So, you gotta do what you gotta do to get up there. So a little bit about James. James is not a YouTube director, as we all know, probably imagine this already went. James is actually a North Korean spy, and they meet in like January of 2017. And so apparently on the day they meet, she takes like a picture with him because she's like excited, and this picture apparently becomes important like later on. So just remember they took a picture of them together. He didn't speak Indonesian, so they had to use like a translator to speak in between each other, which you can imagine that's pretty awkward. She was told she would get paid $96 per prank. Keep in mind, this is $96 US, and she's in Indonesia, so $96 over here is like 1.5 million of they money over there. So she would pretty much be making the good money, right? So of course she agrees to this, and then she winds up meeting like the cameraman and apparently the channel boss, which is what those are the names that they were going under. And these Obviously, these were also, I can't tell about the cameraman, but the channel boss was also another agent from North Korea. And these are like 2 out of 8 that are confirmed to have been involved in this. So now that I told you about a little bit about CD, we're gonna enter the other woman named Jung. She was, this is, should have mentioned, the story also mentions Vietnam. So she comes from Vietnam. She's like the oldest in the and the oldest out of her siblings. She graduates high school and winds up going to college in the capital of Vietnam, which is Hanoi. I think I said that right. And some sources were saying she went there for farming. Others are saying she went for accounting. But all sources pretty much agreed that she was unemployed at one point after graduating. So yeah, she was working as a model, but obviously like it wasn't a reliable gig at the time because she hadn't really got discovered yet. So she was doing waitressing, all pursuing like a modeling career. Like, you know, some people are trying to pursue acting, so they do like waitressing on the side so they can have a somewhat stable income. It's like that. So that she also, apparently Vietnam also has their version of American Idol, so she auditions for that. And then her stage name was Ruby Ruby. In December of 2016, she has a friend. The friend is not named. The friend introduces her to this man named Mr. Y. That's how he's named, like in the articles. Okay. Unlike with City and James, where they had to use a translator because they didn't speak the same language, he did speak fluent Vietnamese, so they were able to talk to each other. He would buy her gifts. He would text her like good morning, good night. He would take her to spots that he claimed were his favorite, and then also took her like shopping for Christmas. Remember, I said they met in December of 2016. So the first prank that Dawn is asked to do apparently is like kiss a stranger on the lips and like run away. Because remember, just like for a prank channel. So she gets too nervous, like apparently like each time. And so eventually he decides to take her to this restaurant. And apparently it's a nice restaurant, but it's a restaurant that like North Korean spies are allegedly going to. So, and she goes in, everything goes well. I guess like nobody really suspects her. So then Mr. Y gets her a teddy bear to practice the prank song. Because remember, she's supposed to be like kissing somebody. So I guess like the teddy bear was for kissing practice. He would also tell her get a passport, because you got to travel internationally. You know, you got to have a passport to do that, to travel between Malaysia and Cambodia to practice the pranks for this channel. So back to City. City would actually meet with James and apparently Mr. Chang. So it sounds like the channel boss. They would meet in a place that was like really busy, and apparently it started off as like her grabbing somebody's hand, like a stranger's hand, make it seem like, oh, I know this person, so I'm grabbing their hand, and then her like run away, like, oh, my bad, you're not who I thought you were. That's part of the prank channel. And so like, I guess to like put like to make it more exciting, they put like lotion on her hands and told her like to cover the person's eyes with it, to which like she did. So then they changed it to like baby oil and said, okay, this time play peekaboo with the oil, and then of course run away when they turn to like look at you. And then of course every time I guess they changed it, like the pay went up, because now we're changing stuff, so we might as well like pay you more. Which of course, you know, she wasn't complaining because this money was going back to her parents. Not 23rd, sorry, 13th, 2017. Mr. Chang meets with CD in an airport in Malaysia. He says, we're going to change the game a little bit. We're going to put baby oil in your hands. You're going to walk into them, cover their face, like we've been doing. But like this time, you can't touch it on your clothes or like your skin, because it's going to mess your clothes up. And so obviously, girls, we're not going to try to mess our clothes up. And unbeknownst to her, they knew this, but she didn't. Apparently, the target that they were trying to go after was Kim Jong-nam, who was the older half-brother and was the original heir to North Korea. So Kim Jong-nam was born on May 10th, 1971 in North Korea. He was an illegitimate child because apparently, like I said, half-brother, so same father, different mother. The mother apparently was like this really famous actress at the time. And so because he was an illegitimate child, they had to they would send him off to Switzerland. So he was still getting a good education, but they had to ship him off as like an employee's son and not the next potential heir to the throne. Because again, illegitimate. And so, yeah. So, of course, the mother, as you can imagine, she does eventually leave North Korea for Russia. So, I guess, I don't know if it was they sent her out or she left, on her own. But she got out eventually. And apparently she was in Russia. Kim Jong-nam would eventually get married and have kids of his own. So, in May of 2001, Nam, apparently, he takes his son to Disneyland, but not Disneyland America. Apparently, there's a Disneyland in Tokyo, Japan. He takes him there, and also you gotta get a passport to go from North Korea to Japan. And on the passport in Chinese, it said Fat Bear. It didn't literally say like, oh, Fat Bear in English. It said Fat Bear in Chinese. So he became a laughingstock, and this is because Disneyland represented capitalism in the Western Hemisphere, even though this is in Japan, and obviously North Korea hates that. So he pretty much was exiled from the family, and then since he's exiled, he couldn't become leader. So then now we got Kim Jong-un, who is the current leader of North Korea. So apparently, I thought this was because he was the second oldest. So like obviously, okay, first oldest gets a ban. So now we got to the second oldest son. Apparently they had 2 older brothers and a daughter. But obviously, North Korea feel like a woman rule. So it's not anytime soon. Because you know how they are. So then the daughter was considered to be... The daughter was actually considered to be the brains of the family. And apparently... The father, before he died, apparently he told some people in Russia that his daughters had the brains and not his sons. But of course, you can't let a woman rule North Korea, so we're going. And Kim Jong-un seems to be like the best fit. Since y'all don't want to act right, I'm putting him as ruler. And also, it said that his older brother, sadly, like, when I mean passed, I mean like they rejected him as the next ruler simply because apparently he had too big of a heart. And quote, the heart of a little girl. And that he apparently made friends with some of the South Korean kids while he was going to school in Switzerland. And that he played video games and like doing jokes. And obviously, as the leader of North Korea, we can't be having that. So obviously, this being a fancy little school, otherwise, why else would you be sending kids here? They got little catering options every single day. It's not like your regular American public school. So he would bring his own meals like every single day. Unlike Kim Jong-un, who had a bad temper, was always like a pessimist and was thinking the negative of everything. He was an optimist and he was always thinking the positive out of every situation. So this part is alleged, not confirmed, but it is alleged, and I thought it was very interesting. Kim Jong-un's mother is actually said to have been the one who called about his brother in Disneyland. Just so like, okay, you can get off, you can't be here anymore, so it gives my chance, it gives my son, Kim Jong-un, more of a chance to be at the throne because there's less competition. And it's actually said that Kim Jong-un had his uncle's 2 closest men shot with an aircraft gun with at least 50 bullets until their bodies both combusted. And apparently there was like several witnesses to this. So apparently tradition says that the wives are supposed to pick up the body and have them buried, but instead they were both cremated. So of course, from what it sounds like, the uncle was not there at the time his 2 closest men got murdered, but he would find out eventually because again, of course, those were his 2 closest men. So apparently he passed out from like fear, understandably. And then 10 days later, after the murder, he gets arrested, and the media is told that he is charged with treason. So I guess like treason against North Korea. His wife, which is Kim Jong-un's, I guess, aunt, and then the kids they had together, so I guess like his cousins, if we being technical, everybody getting arrested. Because apparently in North Korea, it's not just you getting arrested, your whole family getting arrested. Even if it's just something you did. So Kim Song II apparently paid Kim Jong-nam, the man who this video is about, he would get paid $500,000 every year to come up. So I'm assuming come up to North Korea up until 2011, because that's when Kim Jong-un took over. And at the time, he was staying in China because he was not trying to be in North Korea. And then in 2012, Kim Jong-un was trying to put a hit on Kim Jong-nam. And then South Korea, like, they have a CIA apparently, and they found out. So then after South Korea's CIA found out, apparently went through legislation, then sometime it got to New York Times and it became public information over here in America. So then Nam pretty much begs his brother through like letters, like not to have him killed. And so apparently at the time, like I said, he was in China, and to be specific, he was apparently staying in Moscow, Macau, China, while others apparently were staying in Russia and the United States. So apparently there were these 2 people. There's a man and a woman. I don't know if they're actually related to the Kim family, like anyway, but they're calling them the aunt and uncle. And there was one night where apparently they left Kim Jong-un by himself when he's a teenager. So we're going back to when he's a teenager, so before he even took over. And they somehow ran away. They went to the United States Embassy for help, and it said they're currently living under a witness protection program. So Nam would apparently go to Europe, and this is believed that he's actually like openly talking negatively about Kim Jong-un. In 2017, which is the year the story takes place, it is said that Kim Jong-nam was believed to be a CIA informant, And it's believed to be because apparently he went to Malaysia and he checked into a Western Inn. And while at this Western Inn, he got to an elevator with a man and they had like a 2-hour long conversation. So we're going back to February 13th, 2017. So pretty much Mr. Chang tells CD, yeah, don't get on your face and your clothes will stain. Obviously, we don't need that. And apparently one of them was wearing white. You know, obviously white is like hard to get a stain out. And another girl's going to run behind him and make like he's getting kidnapped, but like he's not. Because again, this is for a prank. And apparently there were other spies that weren't named, but they were waiting on like the other side of the airport for the, yeah, they were waiting on the other side of the airport. And Doan and CD were waiting for a signal. Didn't say what the signal was, but apparently they got the signal, and then they ran up to Nam from behind, obviously. So CD goes, comes behind him and covers his eyes, whereas Doan, I guess she's like in front of him because he can't see what's going on. She covers his nose and mouth. And they both have a substance on them, but they don't know what it is. They're just told, like, don't get on yourself. So obviously, this Nam guy being a big dude, CD does get away, but he grabs Doan, presumably like by the arm, didn't say where, but just said he grabs her and asks like who she was. I guess trying to figure out like why she did this. She apologizes, she runs away. He now has his eyes burning, understandably, and then the two of them go to the bathroom, it looks like together, and they go wash their hands. And obviously, of course, this being the airport, they gotta have security, because you know, things be happening. So he goes up to them and like struggling English, let them know like, hey, like I was hit. And originally they believed it was an acid attack and they didn't know who this man was at first. They didn't know he was the brother of Kim Jong-un. So they take him to the airport hospital, which surprised they even had one, but they had one. So they take him there, they call an ambulance, and within 30 minutes of him getting hit, he's dead. So now that he's dead, obviously we gotta identify this man. So he gotta have like a passport or something on him, right? So they open up the backpack and they find 4 different passports. Stacks of hundreds that add up to like $100,000 and 12 doses of an antidote of, ironically, the poison that killed him. So I gotta tell you about the poison, because I was here about like what poison. We're talking about cyanide, like what, you know, what type of poison. We ain't talking about that. But apparently there's this poison that's called Venomous X, and apparently it was banned by pretty much every single country, including Malaysia, where this murder takes place, back at the sort of chemical convention in 1993. And the exception to the rule was if it was less than 3.53 ounces. So pretty much like those little travel size bottles you can carry with you when you go traveling. It got to be smaller than that, and you can have it. And so the U.S., I don't know how to feel about this, but the U.S. apparently dumped 124 tons of Venomous X after they signed the treaty. So look, we dumping our stuff to prove we ain't got it. Woo. And then North Korea, apparently, they had between 2.5 and 45,000 tons of VX, and apparently that's like more than 45 million times the legal amount of VX you're supposed to have at one time. And apparently VX is composed of like 2 chemicals. So separated, you're not gonna die, but together you're gonna die. So one girl had one half, and then the other girl had the other half. That's how they didn't die. But obviously, you rub it on the face together. That's how Kim Jong-nam died. So then, apparently, 9 days after he died, Malaysia announced that he died and who he actually was, because it took a while to find who he actually was. And of course, an autopsy was done. North Korea was upset that they hadn't even done the autopsy, because look, he's our citizen, like y'all had no right. And then Malaysia was like, look, he may be y'all's citizen, but he died on our land, so we got every single right. So then, apparently, the same morgue that Kim Jong-nam was held in, they broke in that bitch. And they would say, obviously, the reason why they were upset, because not only was he our citizen, but apparently they also committed like a human rights violation without consent from North Korea. And then 6 days after the break-in, North Korea came out and said, look, he wasn't murdered. He died from a heart attack. March 2nd, Malaysia wasn't playing. You know, they sent a Korean ambassador an eviction notice saying you got less than 48 hours to get out of our country. Otherwise, you're also going to be evicted. So you either can go by choice or you can go by force. And then they also said that if you're a North Korean citizen, you can't be here unless you got a visa saying you can be here. So North Korea decides to respond with this by keeping all the Malaysian citizens, and then Malaysia pretty much did the same. Problem is, there's 9 Malaysian citizens in North Korea, and there's like 300 that were known in Malaysia. Like 300 North Korean citizens that were known in Malaysia. And so, of course, eventually this ban does eventually get raised, and it got raised by like the end of the month. So the month was already halfway over. So like not even a full 2 weeks was this ban really on, but obviously very intense. So Nam's body does eventually get flown back to North Korea. So I guess for like proper burial. It's said that James, the North Korean ambassador, and like two spies, so like 4 of the 8 spies that are known, they were on the same flight back. So obviously we're gonna go back to City and Dome. They don't know what they just did. They didn't know that was Kim Jong-un's brother. So they're just thinking this was just a regular man. They didn't know that they killed this man. They didn't know none of that. So they're looking around trying to figure out like where the spies at, and they're like, you know what, we can't find them. So we're gonna go home and just wait for a phone call for the next project. So then 2 days later, Mr. Y texts his Dome to tell him, like, hey, look, the video went great. It went so great, we're going to do a sequel. So we tell, I guess, like, maybe didn't use the word sequel, but, like, you know, sequel, part 2, same thing. So, you know, look, it went great. We're going to do, like, a part 2 at the same place. She's like, cool. She pulls up. She texts his calls. He ain't answering because presumably he's back in North Korea by this point. And obviously, since he ain't answering, I'm a dip. And she winds up getting arrested by Malaysian police. And, of course, they're speaking Malaysian. And she only speaks Vietnamese. So, obviously, the translation is a struggle. So, of course, she gets arrested. Mugshot taken. No idea what's going on. We're going to go back to Sidi. She is back in Indonesia with a roommate when the door is, like, suddenly busted down. Like, broken. Like, like when they do a raid, police do a raid of your house, they, like, break down your door. So, yeah, so the door is busted down. She is made to call Mr. Chang, who she says is her boss. And the phone pretty much rings and says this number is no longer in service. Apparently, she's brought into questioning and interrogation, and apparently it is said that at this point, this is where she finds out, like, hey, like, not only did you kill a guy, but this is who you killed. He was the brother of the leader of this country, and this is where everything starts coming down. And then obviously she didn't know this, so then she's put into Malaysian jail with Dome. So then, of course, both families find out about pretty much everything at this point, like everything I told you in this video. And obviously convicted because you did kill somebody who is related to a leader of a foreign country. You can get, and not even that, like just murder in general in Malaysia, they don't play about that. You can get sentenced to death by hanging. So, of course, now we gotta go to the trial because you killed somebody, so now we gotta have a trial. Both girls pled not guilty, and it's presumed that they got public defenders because it didn't say they hired their lawyers, so it looks like they got public defenders. And prosecution saying it looks like y'all knew that the things were like the chemicals you put on this man's face were poisonous, because why else you're not touching yourself with it, and you immediately went to the bathroom after you touched him with it, so you were in on this murder. So the shirt that CD apparently was wearing like the day of the murder, it got some like the chemical VX on it, even though she only had like the first half of the chemical, so there's no reason why there should be both halves on it. And apparently that shirt was accidentally destroyed. So then she decides we're going to show videos of all the videos I took with James to prove that, look, I didn't know anything about the assassination plot. So, do what you got to do so you don't get hanged. I get it. And she would even add that she was paid $4,000 in Malaysian currency. This is about 730 pounds and about $1,020 US for conversion rates, obviously. And so to fly to the airport where the murder happened. So obviously, Dawn, it seems like she only speaks Vietnamese, so obviously just being in Malaysia, there's going to be a little translation struggle. So 2 ambassadors were sent to be able to translate for Dawn, so obviously you need to be able to translate to know what's going on. And she even said, look, I even came back to the scene after the man died, so that proves I didn't know the full extent of what was going on. So then they also included that, look, if I was really guilty, I would have fled the country like they did, because they fled the country, they changed clothes. It was half of them, like, they all left, but, like, half of them left within 2 hours of the murder, and then changed clothes and, like, fled the country within 2 hours, and then the other 4 waited for the body, and then left with the body. So I don't know exactly why, but apparently Malaysia's economy took, like, a big hit after this murder. North Korea hired a Malaysian lawyer to pretty much say that the United States and South Korea were using this as propaganda to make North Korea look bad. They even tried to deny that Kim Jong-nam and Kim Jong-un were even related, and saying he was just a regular North Korean citizen, and that they also even denied the 8 spies. So one of the good things that came out about this case is that CD and Dawn actually became friends, because apparently these 2 were like the only 2 that could relate to each other on what exactly happened, and they feel good. Like, while they feel bad that a man obviously died, at least they're not the only person in the world who's ever done this, and they know they have someone else who knows exactly what they're going through. Like, literally. So then they're waiting in jail for like 2 years, and then CD's praying every day that, like, she doesn't get to go back to Malaysia, and that she's not executed. And apparently go back to Indonesia, I'm sorry. So then she does wind up going back to Indonesia because she gets all charges dropped, and this is only because Indonesia did not want to like start no stuff with North Korea, and they did negotiations in order to get her to come back. Now that the CD is released, now Doan's still technically in prison. Doan had to go back. Doan had to go back to prison wearing a bulletproof vest out of fear of North Korean retaliation. So out of fear of North Korean retaliation, Doan does eventually get sentenced to 3 years, 4 months. But she, apparently, like I said, they already spent 2 years in jail. So she pretty much spent most of her sentence, like, waiting. So they gave her credit for, like, time served. And they just let her out, and she got sent back to Vietnam. So remember how I said Nam has a wife and kids? So apparently it said that they are living in the United States. I don't know exactly where. Even if I did, I'm not going to say because, you know, I ain't sure how they come back on me. So, yeah, living in the United States under witness protection. His son, who apparently is grown now, there are some people saying I would much rather have his son be the leader than our current leader because he's a lot more rational, which I can see that. And the son even said that he wants North Korea and South Korea to get along and basically like come together. And along with like his, like how his, like, oh my gosh, his childhood, his opinion on North Korea, I guess like his uncle. So that is a case that I covered involving out of North Korea. It's not going to be the last one because I have another one coming up in like 2 months. Yeah, like 2 months, like early December. And so anyway, yeah, with that being said, definitely know what you can down below. Definitely a long case, probably a good 30 minutes easily. We'll see how long this one is. So yeah, definitely let me know what you think down below. If you're in other North Korean cases with killing a female, definitely let me know. Or even South Korean, I accept those too. Definitely let me know what you think down below. Sources down below as always. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.